Welcome to this presentation. Today I am going to be discussing the different components of CryENGINE. This presentation will feature all sorts of components. This will include modeling terrain, modifying terrain, setting up textures, tessellation, vegetation properties, particle effects, environment effects, and a flow graph editor. I'll be showing before and after screenshots of the different outcomes, and I'll also be going into detail about the different properties and parameters that you can manipulate to make these different outcomes occur. First of all is modeling the terrain. It will allow you to change the terrain. You could do this by changing the different settings. So for example, there's a list of settings: the feature size, the bumpiness, detail, variation, blurring, cover, sharpness, and I've set them all to low. As you can see, they're all low except from the detail. If I was to go to OK, the image in the top right will be generated. As you can see, it's very high. It was set at 1024, and I think that's the max height. So I changed it to 100, and you can see in the bottom right, that's the outcome. And although that looks very low and very flat, if I was to spawn in game, like right at the bottom right here, and look up, that base height at 100 will actually be like mountains. It will actually be really high. So these are the different components you could change. So for example, the feature size, the bumpiness, how much like bumps there are gonna be, the detail, that sort of controls the height, and the variation as well, that controls how much it's gonna, all of these components will vary. Okay, moving on. After you've generated your terrain, you want to modify it. The brush settings consist of the flatten, smooth, rise, lower, and pick height tools. Within these tools, there are different parameters that you can adjust. For example, the outside radius, the inside radius. These control like the area of the circle like, of the brush. So like these control like how much of the terrain you'll be flattening, and the hardness as well. So like if you want it to be really harsh, you would put the hardness up, and the same goes for the smooth tool as well. Going back from the last slide, just imagine that the base height of this terrain was 100, and I used the flatten tool. If I put the flatten tool at 70, as you can see, the radius is fairly high. This is the radius that I was on about, and I'd started flattening with the hardness really up. This would be the outcome, and you can see all the edges are very rough, and the CryENGINE allows you to use the smooth tool, and this component will just smooth away the edges. Setting up textures. In order to set up a texture in CryENGINE, what you want to do is click the texture tab, and then you'll be brought to this window. The first thing you want to do is change the layer texture, the default, because you don't want the default color there. And you'll look for gray. Once you see the gray, you'd click that, and as you can see, it is changed to grey, and the default color is now gone. And also you can, after you've done that, what you want to do is you would click here, and you would find a texture, and you would assign a material. This component is a very useful component. It's very easy to use. That's that. After you've done that, what you would want is go to the roll up bar, layer painter, and start painting away. And as you can see, the terrain changes the color. You can change these settings here. The radius obviously controls like the area and the hardness as well. You can change the brightness of the color as also. Tessellation. Now CryEngine also features very good tessellation features. CryEngine also has very good tessellation features. To see the full use of these features, you'd want to go to the top, the config specs, and depending on how high you put it, so let's just go for, if you used to go for low, then you can see this is an example. Like if I was to go on low, you would see that the texture is not very good. It's not detailed. And this is the example of high. If you look over here, you can see like the texture looks so 3D. Over here it doesn't look 3D at all. And I know this is only a presentation, but if I was in game, this would look really 2D. This image here, the top image and the bottom image, would look like really 3D as well. Here, for example, if you notice the texture here is a bit flat on low, and if I was to put it on higher, you can see it's more tessellated. The bump map is more visible, and that's another feature component of CryEngine. The vegetation properties. You can change you can manipulate all sorts of properties within CryEngine to get different results and outcomes, and I'm just going to go through the vegetation properties firstly. So you can change the size of the vegetation object. You can change the way it varies, like when a new vegetation object is placed, you can change the way it varies. You could change the way how random it is, how randomly rotated, so they don't look all linear. You can even change the align to terrain. This allows the actual vegetation to like stick to the ground. So for example, if there was a cliff, it wouldn't just go down, it would actually be tilted to the way I'll show you in the next slide actually. You could also, there's so many different properties like hideable, so that if this is yes, this is a ball. If this is yes, then the AI could use this to hide behind the vegetation. Allows the player to pick it up. Moving on. Yeah, like I was saying, if you put align to terrain to true, then you can see that the trees are aligned to the terrain. They actually tilt with the terrain. If you put align terrain to false, then you can see they don't respond to the variation of the terrain. It just still goes straight into the ground. If I was to change the size and the way the size varies, as you can see, this is set to the default parameters, then everything's going to be the same. It's just going to be all the same. If I just make it vary just a little bit, then can you see there's some small trees, some bigger ones and smaller ones. Moving on to particle effects. So CryEngine, another really good component is particle effects. And to change the way particle effects look, or like for example, if you could have this clip to continuous, then the particles are gonna be it's gonna loop basically, and the particles will not just fade away, they'll regenerate. you can, to have more particles displayed at one time, then you would set the count to at least 10. To have each particle rise higher, set it to at least 3, and to set this the speed parameter, speed up the particle, then set that to 3. Environment effects. So the environment effects allow you to change like all sorts of things. Like for example, the amount. This would allow me to increase the amount of rain. So if I was to put this really high, then the rain would be so much rainfall. If it's low, little amounts of rainfall. You could change the color. Always keep, if it's rain, it's best to have it at white. Otherwise, anything else would just look fake. You could choose to, if you want the terrain on or off. So if you tick to true, the rain is gonna pour. Set the glossiness. All these things I'm gonna go through. I'm gonna show like how exactly they work with before and after screenshots in the slides coming up next. So for example, the glossiness feature, as you can see here, when the glossiness is set to 100, it's like the most extreme amount of glossiness you could use. You can see like how reflective it is on the rocks, and here when it's set to 0, it's not reflective at all. And for example, if I was to change the amount, you can see like how heavy the rainfall is becoming here, and here, although it is rainfall, it's very light, so heavy, light, and that's for changing the amount. You could change in the time of day editor, you could change the fog color, the multiplier, and things like that. So like for example, the fog multiplier here, it just increases the amount of fog there is, and as you can see in the screenshot, the higher this value is, the more fog there is on the map. And like obviously here there's not really that much fog. You can also change the color of the fog. So like you can see here is this sort of beigey color, and here I've changed it to like a little blue color, and it looks really like the map looks like really cold now. And also you could change like the ocean color as well, for example, so that here is blue, and then for here I used green. And if I change the density of it, although I can't really show it on the presentation, once you spawn in game, the more dense the ocean is, the less you'll be able to see through it. So if I was to spawn in the water, you wouldn't be able to see much, or you would actually, because this is set to a low value, you actually be able to see a lot. And AI flow graphs, the AI flow graph, so this is a really cool component of CryEngine. What it does, it allows you, let me just go through the different parts of the AI flow graph. So basically you've got the, first of all, you've got the nodes. They can represent entities, and then you also got the links between the nodes, which allow you to link up nodes. They connect up the nodes, and then you have the input and output nodes that allow you to connect connections for links from other nodes. So you could link like here, for example, this output and this input are linked up, and yeah, that's it. Those are the components. Yes, and yeah, that's it. Thank you for watching.